Hello, Whovians, and welcome to my next Doctor Who review. Yes, because I delayed so long with the chase, I am now gonna give you this one the day after. Welcome to my review of Doctor Who The Time Meddler, starring William Hartnell in the final story of his second season of Doctor Who. So, The Time Meddler. Now, this one is interesting, as all the stories are. The story of this story, the synopsis of this plot, is that the Doctor, Vicky, and the new companion Stephen Taylor arrive in Saxon, Northumbria on the eve of the Viking and Norman invasions. It is 1066, a pivotal moment in British history. The hand of a mysterious monk is at work in the nearby monastery, intending that history takes a different course. That is essentially your plot of The Time Meddler. So, The Time Meddler. This is a very different Doctor Who story, because for the first time in the history of the show, this is a story without Ian and Barbara, because they're gone. They left in the previous story, The Chase. So, we have Stephen Taylor returns to make his, first official appearance, I should say. Because he basically just cameoed in The Chase. He didn't really do all that much, and then we never saw him at the end. We find out that he's kind of stowed away on board the TARDIS, and then he joins them on this adventure. So in that sense, the story is very different because of the cast change-up. But I like this story. I really liked it. It was pretty damn solid. The story is very intriguing, and I like that we finally got another Time Lord in the show. This is the first time we have a Time Lord as such in the story, other than the Doctor. How he's trying to change the course of 1066, which is obviously the Battle of Hastings, which we all know is a huge part of history. And the Doctor even says to him, you know, what's the golden rule of time travel? You don't mess with the course of history. And this guy is trying to do that. And it becomes a very intriguing story in that regard. Part 1 really sets up the story as a kind of a mystery, and I really do quite like that, and I think it proves some interesting drama. It's quite tense, and you never really know where the story's going to go, if you know what I mean. So, because of the cast change-up, it's only fair that we talk about the cast change-up. Other than the Doctor, of course. William Hartnell as the Doctor. Again, just as funny, just as charming as ever. Slightly sad at the beginning. There is a moment when he does reminisce about Barbara. He says, "Oh, I wish if only Barbara were here." When he's trying to recall where he is and when he is, if that makes sense, because she was obviously a history teacher. So yeah, he's very good. And when he has his confrontations with the monk, that's all very good. That's all very entertaining. Maureen O'Brien as Vicky. Vicky is very good in this story. Sorry about that. Yeah, Vicky takes charge in this story. She takes on a sort of a leadership role. She's also trying to keep an eye on Stephen, because she's trying to convince Stephen that all of this is real, because Stephen doesn't believe that the Doctor and Vicky are time travellers and the TARDIS is a spaceship. He doesn't quite believe it until he sees it. So, that's very interesting. But Maureen O'Brien, she's very good in this story. And they are mostly separated from the Doctor in this story, as the Doctor goes up to the monastery and is captured for the majority of this story. The new companion, Stephen Taylor, we did see him briefly in The Chase, when he came across Barbara, Ian and Vicky and the Doctor, and he helped them escape. But then he ran back for his little panda teddy bear, and we never saw him again. Somehow he escaped the the Daleks, and he stowed away on board the TARDIS without the four of them realising that he was there. which is interesting. And here, I mean, they clean him up a bit. They give him a shave and a bit of a hairdo, and he looks a lot cleaner. He's interesting in this one. He's a bit impulsive. He's not quite as aware of all of this time travel stuff. He's never been on an adventure with the Doctor, and for fuck's sake, people keep messaging me. He's never been on an adventure with the Doctor and Vicky before. I mean, he's been stuck in the thing for 2 years with the Daleks, so he's been quite recluse. So he's kind of trying to discover things, and he really he becomes part of the team, and obviously he joins them at the end. And I think he's a fitting replacement for Ian and Barbara, and I look forward to seeing where they take the character in future stories that I haven't seen. So, yes, and the character of the monk is really interesting. He's there's no actual name for him. He's just like the Time Meddler. How he's got different artifacts throughout history in his monastery where he lives. The only thing I didn't understand is how has he got electricity? Some of his items are electrical. How is he powering them? That didn't really make sense to me. What I also like about the story is that it's mostly on location, and it's, you know, mostly up on the cliffs and, you know, in the open air, and so there's not as much production design or set design for this, which is a nice change. I mean, obviously you have the monastery, which looks quite cool, but I liked the use of location in this story. I think that was great. The only thing I would say about this story is that at times the pacing does suffer a bit. It is fun, it is intriguing, and it's a good watch, but at times the pacing really does suffer. It does feel a bit slow in certain scenes, which is a slight problem, but it's not so slow that it becomes unwatchable. It's slow, but it's in the way of that it's building and building and building. I do like the fourth part of the story and how the story ends with the Doctor deceiving the Time Meddler by rewiring his TARDIS, essentially. That was really funny and cool. But it's very charming, it's quite light, it's got a lot of fun attached to it, and it's basically serving also as an introduction for Stephen, because we didn't really get to introduce him much in the previous story, whereas in this story you get to kind of flesh him out more as a character, and we can see that he's a worthy successor to Ian and Barbara, who are now gone. They're not in the story, and they're not in the show anymore. And yeah, I mean, also the Vikings and the Saxons, they're all very good, and those actors. There's one moment when the female one that the Doctor meets, she nearly dies. She gets attacked brutally. There's quite some brutal moments in this story, because it's almost like the prelude to a war that's going to happen, and for that reason the music is quite dramatic as well. You keep hearing drum beats, the dum 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 dum, like something like that. Anyway, it's not exactly like that, but overall, I enjoyed this one. It was a pretty good finale to the second season. Again, there are some pacing problems that work against the story, but it was but it served as a great introduction to Stephen and a great intriguing mystery into itself. Really, that's really all I've got to say about the Time Meddler. So I am going to score the Time Meddler an 8 out of 10. Well, there we go. That's it. The second season is now finished. Eventually. Yes, it did take me a while. Sorry. But I've now reviewed 2/3, more or less, 2/3 of Hartnell's era. Well, near enough anyway. So we've got one more season with William Hartnell to review, and then I'm moving on to his last two stories, of which take place at the start of season 4, and then on to Patrick Troughton. So we are almost, pretty much just over halfway, I think we're over halfway through his era. So looking forward to that. That should be fun. So, just like with the end of season 1, I am going to do a mini ranking in this review for all of the stories in this season. To do a whole video about it would just be pointless. I don't have enough to say for the video, and I can't be bothered really, let's be honest. So it's easier to do this, and if you want to hear my thoughts on the stories individually, just watch the reviews. It's just much easier that way. So, I did have time to think about this before I recorded this video, because I've literally just seen The Time Meddler, and I had to go back and look at my earlier ratings for the other stories, just to make sure I was completely happy with my list. But, yes, I think I've got it. So, number 9 is The Rescue. It's not a bad story, but I just... It's so short that that's not reason why it's the lowest, but it's just, yeah, it's always been the weakest. Number 8 is The Crusade. Number 7, The Web Planet. Number 6, The Space Museum. Number 5, The Time Meddler. Number 4, Planet of Giants. Number 3, The Romans. Number 2, The Chase. And number 1 is The Dalek Invasion of Earth. So, that's it. That's my mini ranking of Series 2 and my review of The Time Meddler. I'll just repeat my list just in case anybody didn't catch those. Number 9, The Rescue. Number 8, The Crusade. 7, The Web Planet. 6, The Space Museum. 5, The Time Meddler. 4, The Planet of Giants. 3, The Romans. 2, The Chase. And number 1, The Dalek Invasion of Earth. So, there we go. Thank you, William Hartnell and the BBC, for another fantastic season of Doctor Who. If it's better than Season 1, I would say probably, yeah, it's a bit better. I haven't added up the scores as of yet as to what I rated the previous stories, but I would say that, yeah, it's a slight improvement. I didn't rate anything as low as 4 like I did with the previous season. So, I'm looking forward to Season 3. So, the next story that I'm going to be reviewing is the first story of Doctor Who Season 3, which is Galaxy 4. Now, this is another one that is unfortunately partly missing, so there is a reconstruction that I'm going to be reviewing, because it's not complete, unfortunately. But, you know what? That's fine. We'll have to do it. We'll have to do it that way, and that's the way it is. So yeah, thank you all for watching, Doctor Who fans, and stay tuned for that review. Until then, thank you all for watching, and as always, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See ya.